The government's coming out here in New South Wales and suggesting we should get rid of stamp duty, put some more incentives in place because we want to help more people buy their first home. Is there a hidden agenda and what does this actually mean? Well, that's what I'm going to cover off in this video. If you are interested, keep watching. Hey guys, my name's Ravi and welcome back to Personal Finance with Ravi Sharma. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button because I talk about real estate, cryptocurrency, and financial freedom. Occasionally I talk about what the government's planning to do to really keep pumping money into this housing market. As a buyer's agent, it would make the most sense for me to promote this sort of content and really say, hey, let's have the government pump more money into the system. But I'm not like that. Believe it or not, I don't just support the evil investors that are out there buying property and securing financial freedom for themselves. What I want is a fair market. What I want is the government to actually go and support productivity in the economy so that the economy is actually run by itself, as well as have the market forces decide whether the market should be pumping or whether an asset should be priced what it is. However, I don't make the rules up. I'm just some guy who wears a black t-shirt and talks to you guys on YouTube like you're my friends. Yeah, that's true. Now last year I shared a video around stamp duty removal and how it was being promoted by the New South Wales government to come into effect. You can definitely go check out that video here because a lot of the details around the nitty-gritty parts of what the stamp duty reform will mean for New South Wales and the housing market is still very relevant. We have some more details revealed now, so definitely go check out that video. But the stamp duty is not the only thing that they're suggesting in this budget, and we're going to find out what. New South Wales first moves on stamp duty reform revealed. New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet has released details of his planned reforms to stamp duty in the state. Under the new scheme, first home buyers will be able to choose between an upfront payment or a smaller annual property tax if they are purchasing a property up to the threshold of $1.5 million. So what they're suggesting is you can go and opt in for the stamp duty payment, which on average is about 5% of a property. So if the property is worth $400,000, you're most likely going to pay anywhere between $15,000 to $20,000 depending what state you're in. But that's an added cost, an added barrier before you go ahead and actually purchase your property. When you're saving for your deposit, maybe 10%, maybe 15, maybe 20, then you go,
shit, now I'm gonna save more for the stamp duty.
However, the Premier, who seems to be Superman at this point, is coming out and suggesting, you know what, don't worry about stamp duty. What we'll do instead is we'll have you guys just pay a property tax. Pay it every single year. That means you get into the property earlier, you can afford to get into a house quicker, and then after that, you can continue paying the government for the time that you have that property. We don't see any issues with this yet? Yeah, all right, let's continue. First home buyers in the state are already eligible to apply for a full stamp duty exemption for properties up to $650,000 or a concession on properties between $650,000 and $800,000. Under the new initiative, first home buyers who opt into the tax will pay an annual property tax of $400 plus 0.3% of the land value of the property. The new allowance is expected to be taken up by roughly 55,000 people per year. That is a lot of people. So what exactly does this mean? Let's break it down. So if you go ahead and you remove the upfront payment, which is about 5%, guess what's gonna happen? You're gonna have vendors come out and say, well, these guys don't need to pay the upfront in stamp duty. Instead, they can just pay more for my property. And that's pretty much what I think is going to happen. We see a decline in 5% being stamp duty not having to be paid is probably gonna get added to the price that vendors are now expecting. This is exactly what happened when the home builder scheme came out, where the government said, hey, you know what? Go build a house or renovate your house significantly and we'll chip in $25,000. Guess what happened? Literally the next day, we had agents changing up their ads really quickly and then just increasing it by $25,000 because they knew the government was going to support that. And what was really funny was there was a few agents that actually made a mistake and they were probably not as computer savvy. They changed the headline of the actual ad, but they didn't go into the description and change the pricing. So it was literally like, you just added $25,000 and it's pretty evident. Now on the flip side though, if you do remove that tax and you don't have vendors increasing the price, you probably have a lot more people now being able to get into their home a lot earlier. Now the thing is, yes, we're a country so driven and so consumed by property that we just want to own something in Australia, just own a house, a unit, wherever, it doesn't matter. And then we're going to tell ourselves it's an investment. It's clearly not working. Now the fact is, yes, people will have more homes to live in, they can buy it for themselves, but the problem's not so much just buying something. Yes, you got to buy well, which most people won't do because they buy with emotion, but it's also the fact that you have to then maintain that property. You need to go and make your repayments. And we already know the interest rates are going higher. So who's really getting screwed over here? If you go ahead and you buy your own property, property, you're definitely not rent vesting. That doesn't allow you to really build financial freedom purely from property. If you're going out there expecting to build a property portfolio of 8, 10, 12 properties, you're not able to really do that efficiently if you go ahead and you buy your first property on your own name. Under these changes, the property will not be locked into the scheme if it is sold, though in speaking of these plans for broader reform, Mr. Perrottet has said that he would support a system where all homes transition over to land tax in perpetuity once an owner opts in. The Premier described this move as a step that would lower the barrier to owning a home for first home buyers seeking a place of their own. The Australian dream, guys. In the past 2 decades, the share of first home buyers under 35 years of age has declined from 67% to 61%. It will mean that more New South Wales residents will get their first home at an earlier age and achieve the great Australian dream of home ownership. You can't make this stuff up. Minister of Planning and Minister of Homes Anthony Roberts noted that was part of a larger set of measures included in the latest budget aimed at addressing the state's housing crisis. This government will use every lever at its disposal, including tax, planning, supply, or working with the Commonwealth to give more people in New South Wales the opportunity to own their own home. You can apply to opt into the property tax from 16th of Jan 2023. Now in a second, I'm actually going to share with you what other incentives the government is also planning to help housing. But for now, with stamp duty. Now with stamp duty being removed, yes, it's going to help a lot of people buy a home. That's fantastic. But I'm someone that looks at the opposite and just goes, hey, you know what? The government really hasn't been out there looking out for us. Why are they coming out now introducing things like this? Well, we know that in Sydney, being the biggest market in New South Wales, we're starting to see declines. It's starting to fall and it's starting to slow down. Could we see a retracement of 10 to 15%? Well, that's what I've been holding. I think that's going to happen. If we have that happen and the government has all of its money being held on the basis that we need more properties to sell, so volume needs to be high, if they don't sell and no one's buying, no one's paying stamp duty. However, if we introduce a property tax, that means everyone's paying every single year and their cash flow looks like it's in a better place. Yes, the headline's going to read that they're making a lot less from, the stamp duty tax, but I would go to argue that the ongoing certainty of cash flow and having the land values actually increase, which means in turn increase of the payment that people are going to have to make as part of a yearly annual tax, is going to be more beneficial for the government as well. So just keep an eye out for this when you're reading these things. Use some critical thinking and figure out what is it that they're actually trying to achieve here. New South Wales also unveils a shared equity trial for home buyers. Dominic Perrottet is on a mission, guys. The state government has unveiled plans to trial a shared equity scheme for prospective home buyers in the state as it continues its rollout of housing initiatives tied to the latest state budget. The Premier said that 6,000 places would be available in the pilot project, which is going to be an equity share of up to 40% of a new property or up to 30% of existing property purchased by eligible buyers. The New South Wales trial will be available to first home buyers the government describes as key workers, such as nurses, teachers, and police, as well as older singles over 50 and single parents with a child or children under the age of 18. Now, I've got to give credit where it's due. This seems like it's really targeted for specific people that need that help. They're not going out there like the home builder scheme. That was literally, let's fuel the construction market, pump in the money because everyone's going to be able to get this extra $25,000, which just really inflated the market. This, however, is now really attracting certain parts of the market, addressing it for key workers. Now, I agree with that and I like that. I made a video about this around the election time about what this actually means as a breakdown. How does it work when you sell your property? What does it actually mean? Definitely go check out that video. That's where I actually break down what this means for the entire economy. And this was actually a big selling point for the Labor government to actually get voted in. So definitely go check that out. Now, the participants must have a maximum gross income of $90,000 for singles and $120,000 for couples and have saved a minimum deposit of 2% of the purchase price. 2%? What the hell? Okay. Let's just finish this part up and then, wow. The maximum value of the property they can seek to buy is $950,000 in Sydney and regional centres, including the Central Coast, Illawarra, Lake Macquarie, Newcastle and the North Coast of New South Wales, and $600,000 in other parts of New South Wales. Okay, so let's break this down. You're telling me if I'm a key worker, I can get a 98% loan to value on the property by only having to put in a 2% deposit.
That is freaking wild.
We don't see a problem with this at all, clearly, because if the market actually shifts down by 10% or 20%, and if you look at the media headlines, it could be 20 to 30% in Sydney. If that actually happens and your deposit was only 2%, you're like negative equity territory of like 20 to 28%. Let me just put that into perspective. Let's say you have a loan for $800,000. If you now see the equity position of your property fall, because remember, you only have to put a 2% deposit down, right? So if you go ahead and you buy a property for say $820,000, $800,000 is the loan. If the property value falls by 20% or even 10%, now your debt is higher than the value of your property. And you could go on to argue that, well, I'm just gonna hold the property long term, so it's fine. Yeah, but there's a thing called life, and we just don't understand what it's gonna throw tomorrow. And if something were to happen, you would unfortunately be in a position called negative equity territory. I've said this in videos before. This is one thing you would want to avoid. What makes this worse is that it's against your own home. So if it's against your own home, that means all the money you make actively from your income is going in to hold the property. But if you go ahead and you invest in a property, and let's say the market does pull back a little bit and it goes down by 10%, are you going to be in a negative equity territory? Yeah, you would be. However, you wouldn't have to sell even if you lost your job. Why? Because if you've picked the right location, you'll have enough cash flow to hold while you're holding long term. Because remember, we're buying property for the long term. If you really think about just trying to time the market, or I'm going to buy in September or 28th because that's the bottom of the market, you're probably doing property wrong. What you want to do is you want to go in at a time where people are more scared generally. And what we're seeing right now is a lot of the fear that we saw in 2020 just heightened at bigger levels now, yet the economy is in a better position. Definitely do subscribe to this channel because I'm making a video exactly about this, where it's talking about the fear that was around in 2020. And for some of you guys, you may not know day in, day out what that felt like. And I'm going to compare that to what we're feeling right now, which is why I'm going heavy on buying property. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, learned a thing or two, and if you have, share this video out because it helps the YouTube algorithm send this quality content to more people that really need it. I'm not some guy who sells off the plan apartments. I'm not some guy who sells you house and land packages in the next growth corridor, apparently that I only know of. We focus on existing property. So if you are interested in getting help with the buyer's agency, there's a link in the description below where you can find our website for search property, and be sure to smash that like button, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks guys.